Welcome to the 2013 Candidates Forum, sponsored by Wallingford Community Women. I'm Ann Whitman, the program moderator. This segment features 6 of the 13 candidates running for Town Council. The format will be as follows. The first part of the program will consist of questions asked of the candidates by members of the local media, including the Record Journal and the New Haven Register, and students from Mark T. Sheehan High School. The second part will allow each candidate to make a closing statement. During the question and answer portion of the program, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to a question. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make closing remarks. Before beginning the questioning, I'd like to introduce the 6 candidates running for Town Council. They are left to right: Larry Russo Jr., Democrat; John Sullivan, Democrat; Vincent Testa Jr., Democrat; Christine Mansfield, Republican; Bob Parisi, Republican; Ray Rise, Republican. Luther Termel of the New Haven Register will ask the first question of Larry Russo.
Good evening, Mr. Russo.
Hi, Luther. How are you?
Pretty good. So tell me, what is it about your personal background, your job, what you do in your spare time, that would lend you to being a counselor?
That's a good question. I think 3 things. I feel I'm a good candidate for 3 reasons. One is my background in education. The second is my diverse work experience. And the third would be my track record for my community service. I'm a graduate from Quinnipiac University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Information Systems. I also received my MBA from Quinnipiac. And I have a graduate from Fairfield University in a certificate in financial planning. As far as my work experience, I'm currently a business owner, manager of 9 Yards Property Care. Prior to that, I was in the IT field for 25 years, and I've been in all different kinds of industry: banking, communications, finance, insurance, and manufacturing. I feel, with all that, I am a good leader. I have been a project manager, a team lead, a consultant, and an analyst. So I feel bringing all that together to the town council would make me a good asset for the town of Wallingford. Thank you.
Jonathan Hastings of Mark T. Sheehan High School to John Sullivan.
Hi, Mr. Sullivan. How are you?
Hey, Jonathan. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Now, I'm seeing that Town Hall doesn't really have much access in terms of technology.
Yep.
No voicemail, little internet access, no real email, and then direct deposit of checks is non-existent. Now, do you believe that that should be changed, that we should implant more technological advances in Town Hall, or do you think that what we currently have now is okay?
Well, I'm not going to say it's okay, Jonathan. I mean, this is the 21st century, and time's moved on since 1670 when the town was first organized, right? Look, I think we'd all want to see technology, and sooner or later we're going to be forced to begin installing technology because we're going to be required by state and federal government to submit reports electronically. But can we do it all in 1 year? No, we can't. Taxes would go through the roof. What we need is a plan, maybe a 5 to 7 year plan, where we can invest properly every year without offsetting the tax base. And I think all 9 councilors currently on the council would agree with that. We have had an IT commission that we put together. Unfortunately, it never got off the ground. But look, IT is here, it's been here, and it's advancing. To play catch up down the road is going to cost millions of dollars. But we do need to start budgeting at some point a technology plan. And again, it can't be done in 1 year. We know that. The residents know that. We know things like direct deposit could save us hundreds of thousands of dollars by just keeping the money in the bank for another week and earn interest on it. And that's something we need to negotiate. It's not something we just throw a switch. We have to talk to the bargaining units to do that. But it's a great way to save money, and it's a more efficient way of government. As far as voicemail, absolutely. Voicemail would be great to have in town hall, but I do agree with the mayor on one thing. When you call town hall, it is nice to have someone answer the phone. And unfortunately, if that person's not at their desk, you can leave a name, a number, and they'll call you back. Great question.
Thank you.
The next question is Naha Chardori of Martishian High School to Vincent Testa.
Hi, Mr. Testa. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you now?
I'm doing good, thank you. So, would you be in favor of using more money from the town's fund balance reserve to fund projects, or do you think it is better left in the account and only used for real emergencies?
Well, the short answer would be no. The town's fund balance, excuse me, I've been battling a cold, I apologize. The town's fund balance is structured to accomplish several things. One is to maintain our credit rating. Another portion of it, large percentage of it, is already earmarked for various projects. The proper way to handle capital expenditures is to plan them out over a number of years. The way the town does it now, we have a 6-year capital plan. A lot of the capital improvements are funded out of the fund, which is set up by the money we receive from the electric division. Having a small amount of the fund balance set aside for emergencies, as you put it, is important, and I would not be in favor of tapping into that for one-time expenses because you won't get that money back. Properly planning our capital expenditures is the way to go with that.
Thank you.
The next question is Andrew Regali of the Record Journal to Christine Mansfield.
Hi, Christine. How are you doing tonight?
I'm very well, thank you.
I think I overheard you saying that you were live tweeting prior to the meeting. So obviously, you're tech savvy. I was curious, do you differ from, fellow Republicans in your opinion? And you're you're a current Board of Ed member right now. Do you think the school system is a little more advanced technologically than, the town side of things?
In response to tweeting, I think social media is a part of my business life. I own a technology consulting company. I get to help my clients every day make determinations on whether to invest in technology or not, including social media and offline and online media. So to the question that we're using it in the Board of Ed and in the school district, the district is moving forward to technologically support core curriculum. The state mandates this year have mandated online testing by 2015. So the school district has had to earmark a replacement plan to support online strategies a bit faster perhaps than the rest of the town. I don't think I differ from our other town councilors who engage in all types of communication to stay abreast of current trends in the town, whether it's Half Moon or our local restaurants and the diners with face-to-face, or our event marketing, or using online channels, or using, again, just direct mail, or using print. So I think all media is available. I think to each segment it's a different priority, and I think we use...
What would you push for on the town side of things, though, if you were on the council?
I would strategize with a plan. I would form a committee to assess the current infrastructure. My business discovery training actually was training our employees here at Wallingford. It was a town contract, less than $500 a year, but there was some technology here. Board of Education has resources. I would leverage the existing people, resources, and technology expertise, plan, strategize, and come up with a budget and an allocation phase. I would start with cloud technology and email as perhaps the lowest barrier and perhaps the greatest efficiency that could be gained as a communication strategy for email.
Great, thank you.
Luther Tamel of the New Haven Register will like the next question of Bob Parisi.
Good evening, Bob. You're probably one of the longest-term members of the town council, if not the longest term. I mean, in terms of number of length of service on the council, correct?
I'd say that's a fair assumption.
Okay. So how do you feel about term limits? I mean, do you think that that's something that going forward that the future councils ought to explore?
Well, actually, I kind of got a little laugh out of term limits because every time you run for an election, that could be a term limit. If you're not reelected, you're gone. And I guess that's probably too quick of an answer, but sometime when you want to dabble in limiting things, you may lose a lot of expertise that's been gained. And I don't know that that benefits a town or any of the people in the town. I think I'll fall back to my first answer. Every election has the possibility of a term limit. Thank you, Luther.
Jonathan Hastings of Martesian High School will ask the next question of Ray Rise.
Good evening, Mr. Rice. How are you?
Fine, and you?
Now, it's my understanding that you were once a council member, but you haven't been a council member since the early 90s. And some people might consider that a hindrance since you haven't been on the council for so long. So is there anything that you want to say that might prove that theory wrong?
Well, it hasn't stopped me from serving the town. Right now, I serve on the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate. I take the job very seriously. All the paperwork that I receive, I actually go out in the field and I look at things and try to make a good judgment, just in case I'm called that day to serve. And I have served on a few of the boards in replacement of some of the people that didn't show up. I enjoy doing it. I don't know what much more to say other than the fact that I am familiar with budgets because I was involved with budgets with the town council. I'm familiar with the way the departments work. I'm familiar with what goes on in town hall. Anything that does with the town. I'm also accessible to people, and I made myself accessible when I was on the town council. If anybody ever had a problem, they could call me, and they did call on occasion, and I went and visited him. So I don't know much more I can say, but I don't think that I'm far away from what happened in the 90s up to then, because I keep up to date on what's going on.
Thank you.
Naha Chaudhuri of Sheehan will ask the next question of Larry Russo.
Hi, Mr. Russo. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. How would you plan on working with our state and federal officials to get more of our tax dollars back to the town of Wallingford?
Well, I'm fairly good friends with Mary Fritz and Marion Mashinsky, so I would open up communications with them as well as Senator Fasano. I would take some the experience that's already on the council to guide me with respects to that. I feel there is grant money out there to grab. If it is, grab it. Like they said in the prior session, it's already been taxed, it's out there, and if we're able to grab it, take it. Use it for whatever we need it for, whether it's for our education, our public safety, for our youth organizations, whatever the case may be. I would do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Regali of the Record Journal will ask the next question of John Sullivan.
Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Andrew?
I'm well. You're the kind of person, as a Democrat, you don't always vote along with your fellow Democrats on the council. That was evident last week when you voted with Republicans to send the Board of Ed contract to arbitration. And in the past, you've said that we need to work to avoid arbitration. So why, in this case, did you feel like sending that contract to arbitration was necessary?
Well, first of all, I don't vote along party lines. I don't vote for Democrat or Republican positions. My vote usually represents what's best for the people. Let me make that very clear. That's the way I've always done it. That's the way I'm going to continue to do it if I'm reelected. Arbitration is a costly endeavor. It's part of the negotiation process, and I know the Board of Education understands that. I have, yes, stated earlier, especially on one budget in particular, the cafeteria workers' budget. The cafeteria workers self-sustained. They do not use any town money. They are fully dependent on school lunch dollars for salaries and equipment and so forth. Did I think sending that to arbitration over a 10-cent wage for moms and grandmoms who work in the cafeteria? Absolutely not. but we look at these on a case-by-case basis. Part of my job at AT&T is labor. I understand contracts. Everyone's unique.
Do you agree with Republicans, what they have stated that, you know, this kind of contract needs to be sent to arbitration, send a message to unions in town that, you know, we're not going to accept raises like the 2.25% raise, which was like the sticking point in this particular contract last week?
I can only agree with what comes off my lips, Andrew. And that is that the 2.25, I thought, exceeded a barrier. And that was going to be used for future contracts, because that's how it works. Once a contract is resolved, and let's say we gave them the 2.25, that becomes the leverage point for other unions. And down the road, we could spend a heck of a lot more money on contracts than arbitration. So I did what I thought was best for the town of Wallingford, not in agreement with the Republicans or the Democrats. Does overtime mean I get
Thank
paid
you.
more? No, it doesn't. It means I'm out of time, right? Okay.
Luther Tramello, the Register, for Vincent Testa.
Vinny, your background of public service includes a stint on the Board of Education, obviously a few terms on the council. Have you been disappointed, looking collectively at all those years and your time off the council now, that typically town councilors have been reluctant to buck the mayor's recommendation for yearly Board of Education appropriations?
No, not overall. I mean, the mayor's been very consistent in his in the way he's prepared budgets. When I was on the Board of Education, naturally, the job of of an education member is to advocate for the school system and to try to secure, you know, as much funds as you can and use them responsibly. Town council, on the other hand, has responsibility to set the tax rate. So there have been times where, you know, I've advocated for changes in the mayor's proposed budget because I felt that, you know, in a certain year, the town could absorb a bit more. And there have been other times where I've been in agreement where, you know, especially over the last 4 to 6 years, that it was just too difficult a time to ask the townspeople to absorb a large tax increase, any tax increase, if at all. So overall, no, I haven't been disappointed with that. It's just it's a yearly battle. What's disappointed me more is that we haven't pursued opportunities to try to save money by sharing services between the town and the Board of Education, to look for ways to increase the grand list a little bit so that more the homeowners are not taking so much of a tax hit. There are ways to reduce expenses that would allow us to give the Board of Education more of what they're asking for without raising taxes. So overall, that's how I've pursued it, and that's how I would continue to approach things.
Jonathan Hastings of Martishian High School will ask the next question of Christine Mansfield.
Hi, Ms. Mansfield. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Jonathan.
So over the summer and just recently, there's been a lot of road work to fix the pavement, and especially where I live on 150, it was incredibly hectic. There was road work during the morning rush and during the evening rush, and it just seemed impossible to get anywhere. So do you think that situation could have been dealt with better, and if so, how?
Communications is always beneficial, and to the degree that the internal town, the public works folks are working on the road project, or if you're coordinating with external vendors or, again, utility folks, sometimes those factors are just not in our town control. So I would advocate perhaps there could be a calendar that could be created on a regular basis. Perhaps it's quarterly, perhaps it's once a year, where the head of Public Works and the heads of some of the utilities could gather together their known projects and put it, again, coordinate that in a project calendar. But again, I think it has to do with what's in our control and in our domain, and I know the frustrations that are echoed by a resident trying to get their child to school or a business person trying to get to a meeting. There are realities that our roads have to be maintained for safe access, and with the winters and some of the pitfalls of living in New England, unfortunately the ice and the snow in the last year needed attention, and with all the plowing that had to be done, the unfortunate burden is that the residents have to have our patience to let those roads get fixed and maintained. We own, of course, between the local and the state roads. We also have DOT folks here on a regular basis accessing Route 68 or bypasses. So I think, one, I would understand the priority of having safe roads and without, again, pitfalls and barriers and chunks of, again, traffic, asphalt coming into the car. We've got to keep safe maintenance. So I think it's a balancing act. I would advocate a calendar on a regular basis, maybe once a year, and that might help us better coordinate with residents.
Now, there were times where I saw that they were doing it really early in the morning and really late at night. Would you also advocate more of that?
Again, I think we've got to look at a prioritization that's owned on a personal level. As a business owner, we're constantly looking at calendars, and I think it's easy to, again, Monday morning quarterback, why are they doing this when I'm driving? But I think there's a careful balancing act that has to be maintained with other priorities in the town and availability of resources. Sometimes contractors have a defined limit on the contract, and they may not be available at a certain time. So, of course, we would hope that we can minimize traffic and availability, but I think that's got to be something that's looked at.
Thank you.
Mahat Jorde will ask the next question of Bob Parisi.
Hi, Mr. Parisi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
So how would you propose to help the town of Wallingford save energy? Would you favor bringing in an energy services company to contract with to save money or energy consumption?
Well, do you have any specific parking lot or just parking lots in general?
That was my other question.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
All right, your question, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. Do you, or would you favor using town money to fund such things as private parking or lot improvements, or do you think it's best to allow those businesses to fund it themselves? That's your question.
My other question on energy, saving energy.
Okay, how would you propose to help the town of Wallingford save energy? Actually, I believe through the electric division, we have brought in companies that will go out to businesses on request and inspect and make suggestions to them on how to have their buildings operate more efficiently. Matter of fact, a friend of mine that owns a business on Conley Street availed himself of that service, and he told me he was very, very pleased and affected a saving. So I believe that that is available through the electric division, and I would encourage everyone in business to, at least inquire about it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew Regali of the Record Journal will ask the next question of Ray Rise.
Hey Ray, how you doing?
Good, Andrew.
If I remember correctly, you were on the council back when the council made some crucial votes regarding the American Legion building. I was just curious, if you're on the council, if you're, voted onto the council again, what would you want done with that building? Would you like to sell it? What would be a price that you would accept? Or would you think about, going back to court and trying to, get the protected historical status lifted?
I think you took the words right out of my mouth,
Did
Andrew.
I? Oh, wow.
First of all, the building itself, when the vote was taken, I did not vote to purchase it to begin with. Second of all, I guess the recommendation at the time after was that we would keep the building, take it down, and build a parking lot, which would give us more parking up here. That's changed since then. However, I still think that we always get accused of not planning for the future. And I don't see any reason why we can't keep that building, keep the property, because someday, 50 years from now or 75 years from now, we may need expansion. I know there's been talk about expanding to the rear instead of the side and so on and so forth.
So you would be in favor of going to court then to get the protective status?
Yes, I would. I would be very well in favor of taking it back to court,
Okay.
because I really don't think that judgment was the correct judgment.
So you'd rather not try to sell it then?
I would not want to sell it.
Okay.
Luther Tomello, the New Haven Register, will ask the next question of Larry Russo.
Mr. Russo, I'd like to go back to part of the original question that I asked you. You talked about your owning a business, a property management business. So I think you'd probably be qualified to assess whether or not the town does a good job in preserving or maintaining its portfolio of buildings. Do you think the town does a good job currently?
To tell you the truth, I think it could be done better. I haven't really walked around and looked at all the buildings, but some of the things that I do see out there, some of the housing authority buildings that I've gone to seem to be a little bit in disrepair. But all in all, I think things could be done a little bit different.
But how would you go about doing them differently? I mean, what would you institute in order to make sure that the buildings are better maintained?
I'll be honest, I'd have to look into that. I don't have an answer for you right now. As a town councilor, I'd have to go and investigate that.
Thank you.
Sorry, couldn't answer that.
Jonathan Hastings of Mark T. Sheehan High School will ask the next question of John Sullivan.
Hi again, Mr. Sullivan. How are you?
Hello again, Jonathan.
Okay, so one of the things I've heard about is about how the taxpayers of Wallingford believe that they are paying a lot in taxes in comparison to Choate, who they don't believe is paying enough. Now, would you support that Choate should pay more taxes, or do you believe that they pay what they should be?
Well, that's a difficult question to say yes or no to, because as you are aware, the buildings that house the academic institutions where the students learn cannot be taxed. They are learning institutions. We do tax the residential properties that the administrators live in, that the teachers live in. So we do get taxes from Choate. It's no different than our schools paying taxes. Now, what Choate gives us in return, Choate allows us to use their resources. They're always there to sponsor events. The Wallingford Symphony plays at the center, the Mellon Center. The Sheehan hockey team uses the ice arena at a reduced cost. And any resident can use the grounds to walk around, run around the track. Choate's been a great neighbor. So when I hear that they're not paying their fair share, that's not true. They are paying their fair share. And sometimes they give a little bit more. And as a counselor, I appreciate that. And this is what we need to continue to do, not only with Choate, but with the local businesses that contribute to many of the events we have here. We saw Home Depot here for Wallingford Center's Celebrate Wallingford Festival. It was wonderful. Without these businesses and Choate School, we would have a difficult time having a lot of these events or hosting hockey games. We'd be paying more ice time at the North Haven Pavilion probably. So Choate does its fair share, and they've got a great relationship with the town, and I want to continue that relationship. Good question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mahacha Doherty of Mark T. Sheehan High School to Vincent Testa.
Hi, Mr. Testa.
Hello again.
What real life or outside experience do you bring to the council that would be an asset to the town?
Wow. So all-encompassing. It's a combination of things. My business background was in a few different fields. I spent, actually somewhat relevant to recent events, I spent a little over 10 years in the environmental services field and compliance. I think right now that the town is lacking a comprehensive environmental management plan, which I believe led to recent events that you're aware of, with some improper dumping and so forth and so on. And looking forward, I would like to bring that expertise to the town and in assisting in the preparation of an environmental management and compliance plan. I have a background in finance as well, and I brought that to bear in discussions on the budget. Specifically, I also brought that to bear in a proposal I made that the town move to self-insurance regarding our health insurance coverage. I asked that a study be done, and that led to the town changing the way they handle their insurance. So my professional experience, I think, has been an asset. Personally, I've been involved in a lot of different activities in town my whole life here. So I think I've got a good feel for the pulse of the town, the spirit of the town, and so far so good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Andrew Regali of the Record Journal will ask the next question of Christine Mansfield.
Hi. So the council has long been male-dominated. The only female presence on the council at this point, Rosemary Riscati, is stepping down. Do you feel it's important that there's a female presence on the council? Is there a different perspective that you would be able to offer from your male counterparts? Do you think that you would be representing, the women of Wallingford?
I'm honored to consider running in a seat that is vacated by Rosemary. She's been a wonderful servant and a role model for town councilors, whether you're male or female. I think as a woman, arguably, perhaps there are some differences or approaches that you can argue or overgeneralize are different from men to women. But I might disagree. I think there is a presence, there is a voice that I bring to the table, wearing the many hats as a business owner, as a mom, as a board member of many organizations. But there is a unique voice that I think it's important that we have diversity. I counsel businesses every day for a technology company that I own. I get to create teams with executives and try and help them manage problems. Sometimes they think it's a technology problem. It's usually people-oriented and a combination with using resources like technology. So I would assemble the most diverse team possible, and I would look at all factors of diversity. Of course, gender is the most obvious, but I think that would be most constructive to making sure all of the voices for 45,000 plus people and businesses are represented at this table. We represent a voice, a seat, not a personal interest, not a face, not an agenda that's either personally or physically generated. So I think that my advocacy plays across many specters, and of course I proudly wear a hat as a woman and as a businesswoman, but I think it goes much deeper than that based on values and conservatism and making sure we carry all of our voices forward. Thank you.
Luther Trammell of the New Haven Register will ask the next question of Bob Parisi.
Hello again, Bob.
Hi, Luther.
If you had to pick one or two or maybe even three areas where you've disagreed with the day-to-day running of the town under the leadership of Bill Dickinson, what areas would you cite?
I thought you said you were going to be nice to me.
I am being nice to you.
Oh, I thought so in the elevator.
Fair question.
Where did I disagree with him? Well, one place I disagreed was the American Legion building. I was supporting it, and then I switched over and decided to support selling it. The incentive housing zone, I have changed my mind on that and will support it. So I think there's two of them. Is that what you're
For me.
looking? Huh?
Works for me.
Yeah, it's black and white, that question. Okay.
Jonathan Hastings of Martesian High School will ask the next question of Ray Rise.
Hi again, Mr. Rice.
Hi.
Okay, so my question revolves around the town commissions. Do you believe that they should be elected rather than appointed, or do you believe that the system right now is okay and it would take the politics out of the process if they were elected?
I believe that system works now. All the commissions that I'm familiar with work very well for the town. Naming the Public Utilities Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission. I think we went through this during the Charter Revision Commission, which I was on, and quite frankly, I did not agree with that. Having elected or appointed I would prefer to have the town council continue, and the mayor, because the mayor does appoint utilities and another commission. So I think that it should stay the way it is.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hodge Doherty of Mark D. Sheen High School will ask the next question of Larry Russo.
Hi, Mr. Russo. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing good, thank you. So, are you in favor of the removal of trees on Queensback Street? If so, why?
Let me say this, I think the foresight back when we originally planted the trees was not there. I'm glad that there is foresight now going forward to figure out, once the trees are removed, what are we going to do? Because right now, what can you do with those trees? There's only a few things. You can dig them up, and that's not really relevant because the sidewalks, the root systems, you're not going to be able to do it, or cut them down. Unfortunately, they have gotten too big, and they weren't trimmed. Even if they were trimmed, trees are going to grow, so they need to be taken down. But now, hopefully, the foresight's there. What are we going to do with the trees afterwards? Are there going to be trees that don't grow? Are we going to put flower boxes there with some trees so it's easier to remove them in the future? I'm not sure, but I think, yes, they do need to be removed. Maybe not all of them, but the majority of them. But I just hope that there is foresight before we go ahead and plant more trees and go through this whole process again in 15 years or so.
Thank you.
Andrew Regali of the Record Journal will ask the next question of John Sullivan.
How you doing, John?
Hello again, Andrew.
Bob can correct me if I'm wrong because he puts the agenda together, but pretty sure the council is set to vote and give their approval of the incentive housing zone next meeting, which I think is next week. That's been something that's been in the works for, since 2008, an affordable housing program. Do you think the town has done enough in terms of affordable housing? And secondly, do you think that the town has done enough to get ready for the train station and, developing that area, transit-oriented development?
That's a good question. We can look at it not just on a town level, but on a state level. We're watching our children graduate from college and move on elsewhere because there's just no jobs here. Affordable housing is very important. If we want to keep our children here and carry into the next generation for this town, I was very much in favor of the incentive housing zone. I think anybody that drives along Hall Avenue, Quinnipiac, Meadow, that area, sees improvement as necessary. And the incentive for the builder is certainly a great opportunity to improve that area. Having a train station located currently where it's proposed, I think the idea there was to create more foot traffic and hopefully combine the station with the incentive housing zone to make just a larger area where there could be shops, restaurants, and businesses. That's so lacking right now down there. But, it doesn't help us that we have a state road going through the center, and pedestrian traffic can be a dangerous situation across that street. We've had Celebrate Wallingford down there several times, and it really is hazardous when you've got a train going through one side of the park, and now you'll have actually two sets of tracks, a high speed, right? And you've got a Route 5 with all the traffic. It's a very, very compact area with lots of vehicular traffic, large trucks. But I think approving the incentive housing zone is a key. And I think we all voiced our support for it in the last meeting. That's right.
Yeah.
And you know that, right? Okay, we've already done that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing, and I think our commission did a great job in trying to, look at all the ins and the outs to make sure it was the perfect fit for Wallingford, and I believe it is, and I believe it was a unanimous decision by the council to approve it.
Thank you. Luther Trammell of the New Haven Register will ask the next question of Vincent Testa.
Sticking on the train station in the downtown for a minute, the council obviously didn't have any role in deciding to go for eminent domain on the new train station. That's something that the State Department of Transportation chose to do. But at the same time, you had earlier this year the town council, a majority of the town council voting in favor of using eminent domain to expand or to help expand the Center Street Cemetery. If you had been on the council, given all of the furor that there has been about eminent domain at the train station, or the new train station, how would you have voted if you'd been on the council when the issue came up with the Center Street Cemetery and the use of eminent domain?
Well, the two situations are not alike in that with the Center Street Cemetery, in their need to expand as they were, they didn't have a lot of options where they could go. The train station can be placed in other locations. The state made their decision to go with the eminent domain, and they are, and that's something we had no say over. I think that every time you consider eminent domain, which I'm not in generally too crazy about, you have to look at each individual situation. The whole concept of it came up when you were with the idea of a serious public need with very little or no other options. So the situation where the town decided that these two properties were necessary, and I can't say I would have been against that, provided that the property owners were given fair compensation.
But you could argue that it wasn't an absolute necessity that the Center Street Cemetery be expanded. I mean, it wasn't like they were ready to dig a grave and boom, they need it now.
I suppose you could argue that, but it's going to have
You
to
don't
grow
agree with
eventually.
that?
It's going to have to grow eventually.
Jonathan Hastings of Mark T. Sheehan High School will ask the next question of Christine Mansfield.
Hello.
Good evening.
Now, after this Winter Storm Nemo back this winter, when we were dumped on with 3 feet of snow, there was a lot of criticism saying that we did not go by that as well as we should have, since it was really, really slow, according to some people. Now, it's my understanding that there were some people who hired some private industries to help with the restoration. Do you believe there should have been more, or do you think we should hire more for future?
Jonathan, it's a good question, but Winter Storm Nemo caught everybody by surprise. I think that the use of private contractors was deployed as the storm damage continued. For futures, I would advocate that we convene a meeting. A town council representative would be a part of that with FEMA and folks from the Weather Channel and other meteorological experts. These weather patterns are here to stay. Unfortunately, our climates are changing, and I think the propensity for our region to be struck with either tornadoes or winter storms is going to be a habit that we have to adapt to. Nemo caught everybody by surprise, and unfortunately, we did have tremendous pains locally, both in the employees trying to work 24/7 shifts and deploying resources in the National Guard even to try and get safe access to routes and having residents having safe access out. So looking backwards, again, as a business owner, I can do a root cause analysis. A postmortem is always helpful to see what we did right, what could we improve upon. Those folks worked tirelessly, and I think to go backwards and criticize any efforts is never something that's a strategy we would use. We look forward, and I would bring a team together and plan for the futures, because I think, unfortunately, this is the norm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Haja Doherty of Mark T. Sheehan High School, the next question of Bob Parisi.
Hi, Mr. Parisi. Do you or would you favor using town money to fund such things as private parking or lot improvements, or do you think it is best to allow those businesses to fund it themselves?
Well, my understanding is that a lot of those privately owned lots are leased to the town, and there's an agreement supposedly for maintenance. And I don't know the specifics, but there are maintenance things that are supposed to be carried out by the town. Now, under that structure, it's a little bit difficult to put the improvements on the private business owners. Matter of fact, down by College Street, behind some of those businesses, I was involved trying to get certain things done, it was just a mess. And it took the engineering department to actually survey to determine what the town owned and what the private sector owned. So we were able to get things cleaned up that way on the town side. But it's very difficult to make a private sector person improve a parking lot, especially if it's not where the tenants are business people.
Thank you.
Okay.
Andrew Regali of the Record Journal will ask the last question of Ray Rise.
Staying on parking lots, right? I think you were on the council back in 91. Were you on the council in 91?
I think I started in '93.
Okay. Well, I mean, the Wood and Kaplan property was purchased in 1991. Do you think that it should be kept as a parking lot, or do you think it's okay as a temporary parking lot? I know there's been proposals to put a police station there. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the police station is something that's going to be in the future. And that has to be determined. The way the parking lot's set up right now, I think it's excellent, especially for the uptown. I think that we can see the vitality in the downtown on the weekends especially, and the parking is needed. As far as it being used, I just have to say it's a temporary thing right now. It could become permanent. It depends on what the findings are as to the needs of the police station or even the fire department combined. We don't know.
I think you told me that you don't like that area as a police station, correct? If they were to expand, you were looking at somewhere else in town, or would you be
Well,
okay
I'll
with
be
it
quite
there?
frank with you. The police station, and some people may disagree with me, doesn't necessarily have to be in the center of town. I mean, it could be put in an industrial area. It could be put in another section of town where they have better accessibility. I mean, with the fire department and the police department right next door to each other, sometimes they may have problems getting in and out.
Thank you. That concludes the question and answer portion of the program. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Mr. Russo, will you please start?
I would like to thank all the Wallingford Community Women's voters and all that was involved tonight, this evening. I want to continue to support Wallingford and serve your town as a town councilor. I feel I'm qualified for 3 reasons. I have a strong education background, a diverse work experience, and a track record for community service. I'm a graduate from Quinnipiac University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Information Systems, and I received my MBA. I also graduated from Fairfield University with a certificate in financial planning. Currently, I'm a business owner and manager of 9 Yards Property Care, and prior to that, I was in IT for over 25 years. I worked in a variety of industries such as manufacturing, banking, communications, insurance, and finance. I have held positions as a project manager, a team lead, a consultant, and an analyst. As far as my community service, I have been involved with many organizations and have served on countless committees. To name a few, I was president of Wallingford Little League for 7 years. I was the chairperson for the Holy Trinity School Board. I was a leader in Scouts, and I'm a member of the Democratic Town Committee. I am a leader. I have good organizational skills. I listen and communicate with individuals. I can analyze issues and work in a team environment to come to those best possible results. If elected to the town council, I will work in a bipartisan mode with my fellow councilors to do what's best for Wallingford. In 2006, the Wallingford Rotary Club awarded me Citizen of the Year for all my community service. It was nice to be recognized, but that's not why I did it. I do it because I like it. I like working with individuals, and I like giving back to a town that I love. I hope you can support me on November 5th. Vote for Larry Russo, Town Council. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sullivan?
Thank you very much. Let me first say it's been an honor to serve the town of Wallingford as a counselor for the past 4 years. I've really enjoyed it. One thing I would like to mention is to my left sat a grand lady, and I am truly going to miss her in the next term, whether I'm here or whether I'm not here. It was a pleasure to serve with Rosemary Ruscotti. Look, I've always talked about this, that Wallingford is a town of value and tradition. Everyone in this auditorium, everyone at home values our AAA bond rating, our strong financial position in this state. They value the police and fire services we have, and they value the paramedic service that you get when you pick up the phone and dial 911. I've stood strong on all of those. This is a town where you can walk anytime, day or night, and you will never be bothered by anybody. This is a great town. Some of the problems we have in this town aren't really problems at all. Many towns wish they had the problems we had. What we also have in this town are traditions. And that's something, too, that's very important, and it's very Wallingford. The Celebrate Wallingford Festival, a tradition. The lighting of the Christmas tree, another tradition. And how many thousands of people gather at Riccatelli Field on Thanksgiving or the day before for the Samaha Bowl, the Creaney Bowl, over at Fitzgerald Field? This is a great community to live in, and I'm very proud to serve as a counselor. I will continue to make decisions that represent you, not a political party, you. I need your vote on November 5th to continue to do that, and I hope I have that. I thank you very much, and again, I appreciate all the support I've gotten over the past 2 terms here on the Wallingford Town Council. Thank you.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you. I would also like to thank Wallingford Community Women for organizing and hosting this event. Thank you, Andrew, Naha, Jonathan, Luther, for participating with your questions. Most of all, I'd like to thank those in attendance this evening and those of you watching at home for taking such an interest in this election and for listening to what all of your candidates have to say. It's been an honor and a privilege for me to serve you over the years on the Town Council, the Board of Education, and the Wetlands Commission. It's always been important for me to serve my community. I grew up in Wallingford. I raised my children here. Serving in my church, civic organizations, youth sports leagues has always given me a great deal of satisfaction. And it's allowed me to get to know and work with some really good people who all share the same desire to make this town the best it can be. I'm proud of the fact that I've been able to work constructively with people that may have different views than I do, and then reach decisions that we feel are in the best interest of the whole community. I enjoy working to maintain and improve the quality of life that we all share in this great town. I've always tried to be open and responsive to you. I explain the issues and my own positions on them as clearly as I can. Tonight I ask for your vote, and if I'm elected again, I'll serve you responsibly, honestly, and to the best of my abilities. Thank you.
Ms. Mansfield?
Thank you. To the Wallingford community women, to our students and our reporters, and especially to our voters here and on the TV viewing audience, thank you for the opportunity to have served on Board of Education for the last year and a half. Back in 1991, I was a college senior finishing Villanova University. I was a dual major, majored in political science, and dreamed of running for office. I also wrote my first letter to the United States Senate. In my studies, I had heard about the Taliban, this rogue Afghanistan group that was killing girls for trying to finish their education. And I felt our country should do something about it. I've been advocating ever since. For 20 some odd years, now as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, every day I get to help people keep their jobs with technology and consultation. As a proud board member of so many organizations around town, with my children's youth organizations and as a coach, Wallingford Community Theater, the Chamber as a legislative now chairperson, my children's school, my church, I bring businesses from our legislative committee every year from Wallingford and North Haven to Hartford, direct to the governor's office and to our legislators to talk about the impact of these unfunded mandates and these taxes. They're hurting our residents. Our message is clear. leave Wallingford alone. And our voices together bring hope that, again, with working across the aisles, our advocacy can continue being a voice here in Wallingford and in partnership together. And we have 45,000 reasons to bring solutions together, not politics. Thank you for the opportunity tonight.
Mr. Parisi?
I will ask for your vote this election cycle. I've worked hard to respond promptly to your phone calls, letters, and emails. I've made a special effort to attend town and school award functions and even scouting awards because I feel that elected officials have a responsibility to the youth of our town and to show them that we're interested in their achievements. Now, I want to thank you, Wallingford. It's no secret that I've served many years on the town council. And when I use the word vote, I guess I have a different meaning for it because to me it means trust. And when you are continually successful in achieving office, it's humbling for me to think that my town has put that much trust into me. So it's something I cherish and I respect, and it's the incentive for me to keep going. So I'll ask you to support me this time too, as you have in the past. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all you people. I think you did an excellent job. The students, you did very well too. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes?
I want to thank everyone for bringing this forum before us. And I want to thank the people of Wallingford for listening to us tonight. I moved to Wallingford 41 years ago this month. My wife, at the time, she convinced me this was a good town to live in. Mark my words, she was right. We brought up 2 children who went to the school system here. They're both successful today. Prior to that, I had served a combat tour in Vietnam as a sergeant in charge of people. My business experience, I went to post-junior college in Waterbury, where I learned business, banking, and accounting. I'm members of VFW, the American Legion, and I believe Wallingford is the envy of other towns with their good utility rates and reasonable tax base, their great education facilities, and their good character and history. I retired now. I have the time to give, helping you once again. On November 5th, I would ask you to vote for me and vote for the rest of the Republican team. Thank you, good night, and God bless.
Thank you. That concludes this concludes Part 2 of the 2013 Town Council Candidates Forum. On behalf of Wallingford Community Women, I thank you for watching and remind you to vote on November 5th.